welcome back to Deanna Budgets. I am so happy to have you here with me today. First of all, I want to say a huge thank you to all of my new subscribers. I am so excited that you're here. I can't believe that I've already have so many new friends to interact with. Some of you I already know, and I'm just so excited that we're in this community together, sharing our journeys, and I just love all the support in this community. Now, I am getting ready to prepare my fourth paycheck budget for the month of May, and in doing so, I thought it would be nice to give a little, walkthrough of how I set up my budget so that you guys understand. There are certain terminologies that we use in the budgeting world that maybe not everybody is familiar with, especially if you're a new budgeter looking for how to start. You want to understand what to do. So for my budgeting, what I use is called a zero-based budget, which really means that you look at what money you make for that period and you give each dollar a job. So I'm going to explain how that works by going through a template that I created. And basically, this is what I use every week to prepare my budget. So the first thing we want to do with a zero-based budget is tabulate our income. Whatever income sources you have, you're going to list them out. So if you have a regular 9 to 5, you would put the income for that. If you have a side hustle that you're making some extra money on the side, you want to put the total for that. Whatever it is, because the idea is you want to be in control of your finances, and you can't do that unless you really see where your money is going. So once you have your total income, you're then going to list out your fixed expenses. This is the first and most important thing to remove from that income when you get it. A fixed expense is anything that basically keeps your four walls up, right? So these are important things such as your rent or mortgage, your utilities, and things of that nature. These typically tend to be the same amount from month to month, maybe with a little fluctuation depending on the bill. Once you list these out, you will put your total here. So after you list all your fixed expenses, you're going to move on to the next important category, which are your variable expenses. Your variable expenses are those that change from week to week. You have a little bit more flexibility and control over these expenses, especially if you're working with a tighter budget. So these could include your grocery bill, your dining out, your personal spending money, little trips to the salon, so on and so forth. Depending on your situation, those are variable amounts. Then, once we have that, we can move on to our debt. Debt is something none of us want to deal with or have, but it is a necessary evil. A lot of it depends on what situation we are. We need to factor debt in. So then what we got to do is list out the debt that we have to pay every month. That also got to come out of our budget. There's a lot more to that about how we can, a lot of people embark on debt payoff journeys. And so you can make a plan to pay it down faster, to avoid interest, and so on and so forth. And if you guys are interested in that, I can definitely show you. As of now, my family and I are debt free as of the beginning of this year, because we really strapped down and got that paid off over the past 2 years when I actually first started using the zero-based budget method. And that was ahead of when it was supposed to be paid off. So we're really happy about that. And once you get your debt paid off, you guys, all that extra money you can filter back into your budget. Anyways, that's a tangent. Going back, once we have these 3 important categories out of the way, we move on to our savings. Maybe you're saving for something in the future. You want to have an emergency fund. It's very important that you have some funds tucked away in case of an emergency so that you don't have to drain all your savings to take care of it, right? So For those of you who follow Dave Ramsey, he always recommends having $1,000 emergency fund just in case. But in this day and age and in this economy, sometimes that is not enough. So you have to decide based on your situation what's a good amount you want to save for that. And there's other things you can save for as well, long term or short term. The next and final section, which not everyone necessarily has, but I do use, is the savings and sinking funds. Now, to explain this terminology, for those of you who are not familiar, the term sinking fund, it's just what it sounds like. Imagine a ship that is floating on the water. It gets a hole in the bottom, it starts to sink. What happens to the ship? You lose the ship. So basically, sinking funds are categories that you save for and you're going to end up spending it most of the time. So you're saving for future expenses. For example, you could be putting aside money for medical expenses. You could be putting aside money to buy a new car. You could be putting aside money for that new dress you want to buy. So whatever the category is, you save toward it. Eventually, you will spend it. But in the meantime, it is really savings because if something comes up, you do have that money to use. But that is what a sinking fund is. For me, I have a lot of categories. I like to keep it organized so that it curbs my overspending. It's very easy to see a lump sum of money in an account and think, you know what? I can spend whatever I want. It's very easy. But if you have that money allocated for a specific goal and you say, well, I want to buy that new dress, but I only had $100 in my clothing envelope or expense account. And when you look at the dress, it's $150. Guess what? You're not going to buy the dress that week. You're going to get the other $50 and then buy the dress. So it teaches you control. It teaches you patience, self-control and patience. Those are the main things. So that is the breakdown of the different categories in a zero-based budget. And I will illustrate to you now what I've done for this paycheck to accomplish a zero-based budget. Here is a breakdown of my weekly budget. Now, this weekly budget is basically the same as the monthly budget sheet, except it's for the week. So these are my categories. Here are all my fixed expenses. You can see them listed out here. My mortgage, HOA, my internet/cable bill, water bill, life insurance, electric, donations, subscriptions, transportation, daycare, phone, car insurance. The list could go on depending on your situation. So I have left all of this money in the bank with the exception of a few that I do cash stuff, just a few, because these are all paid electronically for me. I am a hybrid budgeter, which means that a lot of my transactions are digital. I use my credit card a lot. I do that because I love the points and I love the protection that using a credit card offers. It really has a nice benefit for fraud. You don't have to worry about, with a debit card, people can gain access to that if they get your debit card and you really have no recourse with the bank. The money's gone. With a credit card, you can just call them up and say, listen, I didn't authorize that. And guess what? You're good. However, I do not recommend using a credit card if you really have not gotten control of your spending and you are in consumer debt, because that is just dangling temptation. So if you are at the point where you can, then go for it. But this is what I do. So because these are all electronic, I leave those funds in the bank and the rest I cash stuff. So I cash stuff my variable, my savings, and my sinking funds. I have no debt, as I mentioned before. But after we left all this in the bank, here's where the zero-based part comes in. We have $977 left over to work with in cash. From that $977, these are my variable expenses. We've worked on these numbers for quite a while to come to a comfortable amount, and that will be different for each situation. And if you need pointers on how to get to a comfortable amount, let me know in the comments, and I can definitely make a little video about that as well. So here's the breakdown. With all of these, it comes up to a total of $415. Now, I am subtracting the $415 from the $977, which means we have $562 left over. From that $562, I've dedicated $317 that will go towards savings and sinking funds. These I labeled as challenges because that's where the fun part comes in, and you'll see that later on. But I basically have little challenges that help me to save money for my different savings goals and sinking funds. So after the $377 is deducted, we have $245 remaining, and that $245 will be going into my sinking funds. I'm putting $25 into my buffer, $100 into our vacation travel fund. These are savings accounts, so every week I put the same amount into these accounts. $50 for my baby girl, $50 for our joint savings, and $20 for our month ahead savings. This fund is like a sub-emergency fund, because what it is basically an account that has 1 month of expenses that we would go through in case both of us are out of work, we had no money coming in. This fund would support us for the month as if we were working. So when we determine like the essentials of what we need in a month, we came up with a figure, and now we're saving to getting that figure so that we'll be officially a month ahead. But as I said, it stays in our high yield account as a backup emergency, if you will. All of that equals to $245, which is what we had left over from here, and therefore we have $0 remaining. Zero-based budget, yay! Now, zero-based does not mean that you've spent all your money. No. It just means that you've given every dollar a place to go and a job to do, right? Great. Okay, so that's our budget. Now, I did it on this sheet so you guys could see it, and I wanted to now show you basically, this is what I transferred it to, or cash breakdown. So as I said, I'm a hybrid budgeter, so this is the section that I can then determine what I would need to withdraw from the bank to cash stuff. So here's a budget breakdown. I've basically just listed the cash categories and then the breakdown, and this will be my total that I will be cash stuffing on the next video. So I will be right back with you guys on Friday with a new video showing you the cash stuffing, as well as playing some saving challenge games, because when you play games, it motivates you. It gives you those little serotonin releases in your brain, and it makes you happy. And when you're happy about savings, you're motivated to keep doing it, because which of us don't like to spend money? I know I do. So you gotta have a reason to save it. That's all I have to say to you guys today. I am thanking you so much for listening. This video was very informational, but I wanted to just do that for those that may not be too familiar with this budgeting style. And I'm happy to do more videos like these with answer any questions you have if you do. But for now, thank you so much for joining me on Deanna Budgets, and I can't wait to be with you again. So have a great day, you guys. Bye!